I thought, Mr. Speaker, we might start with the school finance lawsuit, resolution of that, or at least the temporary resolution of it. We have a ruling as of earlier this week. You agree with Judge Dietz that the state system of funding public education is unconstitutional?
Well, it doesn't really matter what I think.
Well, I asked. I'd like to know.
What really matters is what the judge thinks, and I think it was anticipated that he would think what he thinks.
Not a big surprise.
No, not a surprise at all, and I assume it'll be appealed by the Attorney General. I don't know exactly what his strategy is, but the case is not finally over. And but the first step, I think, was 12 weeks of testimony and an expected decision. So
yeah.
We'll see where it goes from here.
Would you like to see the state appeal? It's going to basically draw out for some more time the ultimate resolution of this.
Well, if the number I saw associated with his verdict is accurate at 10 or 11 billion dollars, whatever the number was, sure, I'd like to see it appealed.
Like to have a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Perhaps he can appeal it for 10 years, right? He was talking, Judge Dietz, you're referring to Judge Dietz's comment that the resolution of this ultimately might be $2,000 per enrolled public school student, or somewhere upwards of $10 billion that the state would be on the hook for if this goes a particular way. You have that money?
I don't know, but
you sure? Did you leave it in your other pants? Where will the state be able to lay its hands under the conditions that our budget is in right now? Will we be able to?
No, not today. It won't even be close.
Right.
As a matter of fact, and I see quite a few members of the lobby here this morning. This would be a very good time for Chairman Pitts to slip one past you over at the Appropriations Committee, but no, we don't, and we're working right now on a supplemental bill, which will be coming to the floor in the coming days or weeks, to still deal with the dramatically difficult fiscal times we went through in the last session in this current budget. So we still have a lot of unfinished business to take care of before we start tackling anything in the near the neighborhood of Judge Dietz's comments in his verdict.
When the Lieutenant Governor was here a couple weeks ago, Speaker, he suggested that a prudent thing for the legislature this session to do might be to take a couple $2 billion and put it to the side as a hedge against whatever the resolution of this case is. Would you support that idea?
Well, it could be prudent. I don't think we're quite there yet. This session, and I feel very, very good about where we are in this session in terms of big, challenging issues facing a incredibly fast-growing and changing state.
Yeah.
Talked a lot about education, higher education, water resources, transportation infrastructure. Before we tackle the big education question, I think we need to get our arms around some of these other things that aren't $10 billion issues, at least initially.
At least initially.
Yeah.
Right. Let me come to those in a second. Let me ask you, though, the special session discussion, as you know, is heating up. People assume that there's going to be a special session now in 2014 after what is assumed to be, as you indicated, an appeal.
And we haven't even enjoyed the last 110 days of this one.
Well, I assume that you are expecting, as we are, that you all will have to come back at some point and deal with this.
Well, if that's the requirement ultimately from the Supreme Court, then that's what we'd have to do, I suppose.
Any sense of whether that special session should be before or after the primary?
Special sessions are called by the governor, and
maybe I should ask him.
That's probably better directed that way.
Right. When Chairman Williams and Chairman Pitts were here last week, I asked them about the revenue estimate, which found that, lo and behold, there was $8.8 billion more available in the last biennium than we had assumed. And I asked them specifically if they had known 2 years ago that there had been $8.8 billion more available, as the comptroller now tells us there was, through either the shale plays or sales tax collections being up or whatever else, would they have voted to cut public education to the degree that they did? And they said no. Would you share that point of view?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So if the money's available now, Speaker, if you find out 2 years later that you suddenly have $8.8 billion and you wouldn't have cut it if you had known that you had it, now that you know that you have it, why don't you simply reinstate the money that you cut?
Well, because the school year is already well on its way.
I don't think the teachers and the kids would mind if you did this late.
I'm sure they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And there may be some targeted areas where we could help.
Right.
I'm not one who downplays the difficulty that our educators and those responsible for our public schools have had to go through. It was a very, very difficult process, but we were committed under the circumstances of a $27 billion budget shortfall
Right.
We were committed not to raising taxes, and I think everyone knew something not very pleasant was coming. Everyone was cut last session, virtually everyone.
Right.
And my hat goes off to educators for holding things together as well as they have.
Right.
To families too, to kids that have been dealing.
But in a
with
perfect world,
back-to-back.
Speaker, you would not have cut public ed as much as you had to.
No, I think very few of us would have.
In the last session.